Good morning, everybody. Today is April 27th, and let's talk a little bit about not just about the coronavirus, but about what's going on in terms of how I use this analysis in order to kind of relieve stress. It's kind of odd because I'm dealing with something that's deadly, but in a sense, it's very much a product of mindfulness to me. I've always found myself when I'm absorbed in an activity that I do, I actually enjoy life better. I'm less worried about nonsensical cognitions, and I tend to actually, my days fly a little bit more, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not. As you get older, it becomes more and more troubling to see days fly the way they do, because you know that eventually we're all going to pass away. Hopefully not from this, but eventually, as we get older, our time on Earth is getting shorter and shorter. But I do enjoy the mindful aspect of anything. I'd rather live my life this way than be worried about everything that happens, every pathogen, every whatever. Like, there's too much worry right now, and I'm a little frustrated that there's this peddling of fear. So it's kind of sad, but here we are, and I like every morning when I get into the process of logging these numbers. See, I trust only myself. I don't trust everybody else. So I like to do all this stuff on my own. You wonder, why do I do this every day? It's because I trust who I am, and I know my abilities, and I know that I'll never leave any stone unturned when I'm searching for results. I can't trust everybody else. I do trust Johns Hopkins University because of their renown, their great reputation in public health and in medicine. So their website that they produce every day in order to enlighten us, or to provide us knowledge about the coronavirus, is something that is very well done and uses ArcGIS. By the way, at LaSalle University, in our public health program, we're one of the only programs in master's world that's offering ArcGIS, which is what is used to produce these maps that you see all the time. And also, we're one of the few that has a grant writing course in it. So we do a lot to prepare our students for the future. And look at that beautiful campus. I mean, come on. In the middle of Philly. Can't wait till things get back to normal so we can be back and I can see my wonderful students again. That's what I'm looking forward to. So you're welcome to join us. I'd love it. You have kids who want to go to college. Our tuition is lower than most private schools, and we did that to help people get educated. But so I look at these data every day, and I look for trends, I look for interesting stuff, and I see stuff that's just so enlightening, and it's more interesting almost than just presenting results. Like, let's take a look at this figure here. This shows that what happens with prevalence every day, the proportion of the population the number of cases in the population per 100,000. Cases being active, right? So these are always complicated to calculate because we rely on what is called passive surveillance, people reporting to us whether somebody is ill. And when people are busy, it's really hard for them to report. But there's interesting occurrences when we rely on passive surveillance. So what happens is especially when people are busy, and especially if people don't like to work on Sundays, and in very religious countries you have that, or Saturdays or whatever day, you'll see what this occurrence of a data dump. Like here, this is a perfect example. I'm looking at Spain. So Spain is this darker blue, and you see, bam, this drop from yesterday. Does that mean that all of a sudden they're having fewer cases? Well, what happens was there was a data dump in the number of individuals who recovered that we didn't have before. So when I take into account those who are recovered, that's going to reduce my active cases. So you're going to see this prevalence drop. It's also probably why we see this massive incline in the US. It's not that necessarily we're having this greater infection. It's spreading. It's just that we're actually capturing how many people have it because we're testing so much. We're testing so much right now. So everything that you see in the data are based on surveillance, how well data are being reported, the cases are being reported, how well they're being logged, and how quickly Johns Hopkins and other organizations that are keeping track of these data can actually upload them into their system so that statisticians, epidemiologists can actually make use of these data. And also, as I've mentioned before, testing is you can be skeptical about the results of tests because they're not perfect. I mean, the cotton swab, the last I saw, had a sensitivity of 80 and a specificity of about 73%. Sensitivity being the probability that one it tests positive given one has the disease. So, I mean, if you're only 80%, you're going to have a lot of false negatives, and its specificity is the probability of probability of testing negative given that one doesn't have the disease. That means you're going to have a lot of false positives. So there's just a lot of misinformation and confusion, but people are making their decisions based on this information. As you may already know from what I've been doing, if you've been watching me, if you're not watching me, these figures that I present, like this one here, shows how the proportion of the population 65 and above varies by country, of course, but you'll see that case fatality kind of has a relation to both the proportion of the population 65 and above, and this blue is the number of hospital beds per 1,000 individuals. So this gray line is case fatality. And I have this sorted by case fatality from highest to lowest, so you'll see how it declines depending on this gap between these two and how they mirror each other, where they mirror each other better. Where there's enough hospital beds for older population, you have lower case fatality, whereas this big gap, you have a greater case fatality. So countries like Sweden, Netherlands, UK, Italy, France, Belgium, where we see the greatest case fatalities, you'll see these this big gap. So these are where you have the greatest case fatalities. They're all marked in red. You have a 15% chance of dying if you have coronavirus in Belgium. France is pretty high, but US, we're actually doing okay now. Now here's another thing. Why are we doing okay? How is this calculated? So we take our denominator is the number of active cases, and our numerator is the number of deaths. So we're having plenty of deaths in the US, but if you think about it, if we're doing more testing and we're detecting more individuals, the case fatality goes down. The deaths in some countries, I may not trust the results. But in our country, I do trust the results because of the way we process death certificates. So we will be able to find if somebody had coronavirus or not. Now, some people are skeptical about that. Well, there's always skeptics everywhere. They can go play somewhere that, I don't want to be near them. I like being around positive people. So if you think about it, the more we test, our denominator is going to increase and our numerator is going to decrease. So the reality is that our case fatality is probably a lot smaller than this. In fact, it's probably a lot smaller than it is in all these countries, because there's probably a lot of people who are infected with this coronavirus, this novel coronavirus. So these values are probably overinflated. But if everybody's doing kind of the same thing, then we're probably okay. Luxembourg had another major data dump. Their population prevalence used to be in the 400s, but once we got more data, boom, it dropped to 85%, 85 per 100,000 population. Okay, now I want to look at a couple of regression findings just to explain what's going on and why we're seeing the number of deaths that we see. So again, this is something that I've just been having fun with myself. So this is a model where we are predicting case fatality from the percentage. And I use percentage here just for a specific reason. So you multiply proportion by 100, you get this percentage, right? So I'm doing this for a reason, and also this is number of hospital beds per 1,000, which I've been using, and then I have control for population density. I also did this interaction, which was significant before I got more data, so it's starting to lose its significance. It's been going, the p-value, the probability of the observed value given the null hypothesis is true, keeps on going up, so it's no longer really significant. Although some people could argue that a p-value of an alpha of 0.15 is is okay with such a small data set. I'll take 0.10 at max. But so you see that there are two key predictors of case fatality. One is the percentage above 65 in a population, 65 or above, and then the hospital beds per 1,000. So let's just look at these data. Let me interpret these for you. So we can interpret these as for each 1% increase in the population greater than or equal to 65, there was a 13% increase in case fatality. So each 1% increase in the population greater or equal to 65 was associated with a 13% increase in case fatality. So that's something that's interesting to know. With respect to hospital beds, each hospital bed increase per 1,000 population was associated with an 18.56 decrease in case fatality. So that's interesting, isn't it? So you see the role that these variables play, or these factors, some of which are health preparedness and some are just an aging population. So in addition, as you may know, again, if you've been following me, if you're not following me, I use this HB65 index. So this is hospital beds per 1,000 divided by proportion of the population 65 and above. And you can see from the figure that case fatality goes down as this HB65 goes up. So I also ran a regression analysis with this, controlling for population density. And this is what we get. To those of you who are not familiar with regression analysis, this all might look like gibberish to you. So again, now I log transformed HB65 to make it more interpretable. So when we were dealing with just hospital beds alone, we could talk about each additional hospital bed. When we're dealing with the percentage of the population 65 or above, we have 1% as our natural scale that we can use, so it's easy to interpret it, like a 1% increase. But here, when we kind of lose our scale when we do this ratio. So I log transform the predictor variable, and I also have a log transformation of case fatality. This was done not just for interpretation, this was done to correct for some issues that we had in terms of homogeneity of residuals. So this is what we get. Each 1% increase in the HB65 is associated with we just directly interpret this as a percentage because both are log transformed, as a 1.10% decrease in case fatality, holding population density constant. So some interesting results. Hopefully we can talk about this and publish this into some useful information so that for public health policy. So let's prep better for one of these catastrophes. And it is a catastrophe, not just because of the number of people who have died, which is obviously very tragic, but also to the people who are suffering now because our economy is closed. Think about this. While we say stay home, stay home, stay home, well, for people who have a solid income that keeps on coming in, that's fine. I think the people who are being forgotten are those who have to go out and work all the time. And those are the ones who are putting themselves at risk. Like the cashiers at grocery store, I like to shop at Wegmans. They've been doing a fantastic job, and I feel so sad that they have to be working. Well, everybody's saying stay home, stay home, stay home. Well, they can't stay home. Or people who are cleaning, or people who just don't have the money. What are people supposed to do? We have to be able to get over this. So we need to prepare better for the next time. All right, thank you, everybody. Hope everybody's out and about again soon. That's what I'm hoping for. Thank you. Have a good day. Be safe.